We are going on to the general election as a candidate for mayor, and what people have been saying is write down Byron Brown.
That shameful display was the incumbent mayor of Buffalo, Byron Brown, who lost the Democratic primary for the mayoral race in Buffalo, New York. India Walton, a self-described Democratic socialist, did in fact win the primary because she's a great candidate, of course, but also because of the fact that Byron Brown just did not take her challenge seriously and didn't even agree to do a single debate with with Walton. Now, with that said, what we're seeing from Byron Brown right now is really just this shocking Trumpian display of refusing to take the loss and rally behind the Democratic candidate that he lost to. So let's hear a little more of what Byron Brown has to say. He's encouraging folks to write in his name in the general election. We're already seeing some division among Democrats in Buffalo over this very issue. But just listen to the type of fear-mongering and language he uses to talk about Walton.
You know, we know the difference between socialism and democracy. We are going to fight for democracy in the city of Buffalo. The voters have said that they don't want an unqualified, inexperienced, radical socialist trying to learn on the job, on the backs of the residents of this community. We will not let it happen.
No, actually, the voters already communicated what they wanted. And they decided to go against you and vote in favor of Walton, who, again, let me just repeat myself, won that Democratic primary in the mayoral race for Buffalo, New York, fair and square. I mean, Byron Brown certainly didn't take her seriously, certainly didn't campaign heavily against her. He totally underestimated her. And she is a Democratic socialist. To use the type of framing and rhetoric that you would hear from someone like Donald Trump or Tucker Carlson in regard to radical socialists is just shameful and honestly incredibly pathetic. We're talking about a candidate who had the backing of the Working Families Party, of the Democratic Socialists of America, of grassroots organizers. She's funded by small dollar donors, whereas Byron Brown is very different situation. In fact, the Buffalo News reports that the incumbent mayor, Byron Brown, stated the next portion of his campaign with the promise of an all-star team that will knock on every door in the city, raise enough money to compete, and even engage in debates he refused during the primary. No, come on. Look, the primary is where it matters the most for all intents and purposes, right? That's where we get to choose a candidate who represents the best interests of the left. And in this case, Walton certainly does that. That's why she won the election. But to now go to the general election and encourage people to write in Byron Brown's name, what does that do? That splits the vote, of course. And whatever happened to democratic unity? Anytime you have a leftist candidate who so far is criticizes, just gently criticizes the Democratic establishment or corporate Democrats, what do we hear? Oh, we need unity, we need unity. But now we're dealing with an incumbent mayor who can't accept the fact that he wasn't popular enough among voters in a heavily Democratic part of New York. And so he can't accept the fact that he lost and is now fear-mongering about the winner and also encouraging a strategy that could split the vote and even pave the way for a Republican candidate to win. I mean, it's just stupid and shameful. I do want to also talk a little bit about how India Walton responded to it, of course, but the differences between the two candidates, because that's obviously incredibly important for anyone in Buffalo who might be watching this, who might wonder, okay, well, I want to take part in that general election, who do I vote for? I'll give you the details. First, let's hear from India Walton, who says, quote, "We urge Brown to accept the will of the voters, end this futile campaign, and help us work toward a seamless transition. It would be a shame for Brown to ruin his legacy by partnering with right-wing real estate developers in this pointless effort. The people of Buffalo deserve so much better than this." The fact of the matter is Byron Brown does have an incredibly cozy relationship with real estate developers. I mean, as a Californian, I know firsthand what it's like to have a mayor who has cozy relationships with real estate developers. It's pretty awful. It's certainly contributed considerably to our homeless crisis here in Los Angeles. But with that said, the real estate developers and the relationship that Byron Brown has with them is very relevant to this. So Brown's campaign has given financial aid at least $30,000 in the closing couple of weeks. That's when the panic struck in, right? That's when everyone realized, oh wait, this guy hasn't really been campaigning. He's gonna lose. We need to give him some money. From out of area wealthy and connected political benefactors, including those with business interests before the city for his losing primary run. Now let's take a look at Walton. How was her campaign funded? What kind of relationships does she have as a democratic socialist? He left that word out of his description of her. Just referred to her as like some dangerous radical socialist. No, she wants to actually do what's right by her constituents and represent their best interests as opposed to real estate developers, and her campaign contributions certainly bear that out. So when Brown announced that he would challenge her as a write-in candidate, Walton said she raised $40,000 in 24 hours from 600 supporters. So some of those include some heftier contributions, but the majority of her funding has come from small dollar donations. Much of Walton's primary money came in organically, in the words of one campaign source, as word spread on social media and through outreach by the New York chapter of the Working Families Party, which helped run the Walton campaign using its experience in such things as primary day get out the vote efforts. You look at her funding, it does come from small dollar donors. You have this very organic grassroots effort to get her in that mayoral seat, to win that office. And what's also really impressive, guys, if you want to see what effective electoral strategy looks like, take a look at the state of New York, because for all the criticism that DSA gets, and even I've criticized them in the past over honestly things that aren't even that important. When it comes to their organizing on the ground, when it comes to their electoral strategy, they have shown that they have a strategy that works. Knocking on doors, speaking to people who feel disaffected, who don't think that their vote even matters, right? Knocking on doors and encouraging people to be part of the electoral process, but more importantly, offering something to the voters of Buffalo, New York, that they haven't really been offered by Democratic politicians in a long time. I mean, it's the first time since the 1960s that you have a socialist candidate who is very likely to win the general election in this mayoral race in Buffalo, New York. And so she's talking about housing, she's talking about creating a more equitable system, not just racially, which of course she talks about, but economically speaking, and not doing favors for real estate developers and corporate interests from out of state. I love it. And by the way, Byron Brown also alleges that she wants to defund the police. And she came out and she's like, I didn't say I want to defund the police. We actually have a heavily funded police force in Buffalo, New York, and we all know about that. We've seen some of the horrendous footage of police officers from Buffalo, New York, brutalizing elderly people as they're protesting. What she's trying to do is reform the system so everyone in that community, whether they're black or white, whether they're poor or rich, actually get protected and served by the police in Buffalo, New York. There's a very big difference between that and just blindly supporting Buffalo police, regardless of what they do or regardless of how brutal they are. So these small victories matter, and it's important to shame the hell out of incumbent Mayor Byron Brown and the stunt that he's pulling right now, because it's Trumpian, it's pathetic, it's embarrassing. And it does go against the will of the people in Buffalo, New York, the voters who turned up to support India Walton in this race.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.